everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Walk. I'm your host, Joshua Ingram. It is Monday, May 26th, year of our Lord 2025, and this is episode number 128. Alright, so here's a testimony. It's 2:15 in the afternoon, and I was just sitting relaxing, and all of a sudden I get this prompt in the spirit to go out with the signs to this place. There's a place about 15 miles from my house that's a war memorial. I think they call it a Vietnam memorial, but they got World War II, World War I, the Iraqi War. It's a pretty big deal. I've been there a couple times to honor my grandpa and my stepdad. And, clicks in my head, it's Memorial Day. There's probably a lot of people out there. So maybe I should head out with the signs. And like I say, this was a movement from the Spirit because it came out of nowhere, and I did not want to go. I sat there and I debated. Immediately I was hit with nervousness and apprehension. And usually when I go out with the signs now, I've gotten kind of used to going, so I don't really get scared anymore. There's always a little bit of nervousness because it's like, you know what people are thinking. They all think you look like an idiot and you're some crazy guy on the side of the street with a sign. But you get over that pretty quick. But this time I was really, really nervous in the spirit, just feeling like, man, this could be bad. I was thinking, my sign has the verse from Hebrews. It says, after death is judgment. And then underneath that it has, now is the day of salvation. I forget what verse that is. And then on the bottom it says, repent and believe. And so as I'm sitting there wrestling, I'm thinking, somebody might get offended at that. Like, they might think it's some sort of, I don't know, if people think it's dishonoring to vets who have died to bring up death. I was like, I was just thinking, like, I don't know how people are going to react to it. So anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm just leaving the event, so I'm still kind of wound up. So, as the Spirit's prompted me to do this, I jump online real quick to see if there's any events going on there. I figure, of course, there's got to be something. It's Memorial Day. And sure enough, they have some big annual biker rally, motorcycle rally. And so that adds a layer of apprehension as well. Although it shouldn't be. I found that bikers are some of the nicest people, You treat them with respect, they treat you with respect. But, there's the stereotype that these are violent people who might, have no problem fighting or throwing a punch, Anyways, this is all just going through my head here in just like a couple minutes. I'm thinking about the sign. I'm thinking about possible offense. I'm thinking about confrontations. And I didn't really wrestle with it long because it felt like a prompting from the Spirit. I was like, all right, this is something I got to do. So, I'm sitting here with nothing else to do. It's a nice day out. I have no excuse not to go. There's going to be lots of people there. Let's just do it. And so I decide, and before I can talk myself out of it, I throw some clothes on, put my shoes on, grab the sign, and I'm out the door. And I've always found once you start moving, it's done. It's when you hesitate, that's when you find excuses to not go do what the Lord has asked you to do. So anyways, on the way there, the nervousness continues, and I'm praying, Lord, just the same prayer I always pray. Give me favor with the people. Give me favor with business owners, pedestrians, police. Keep me safe, protect me, that sort of thing. But the whole time I'm filled with apprehension. And so I get there, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's like I say, it's this huge memorial site, but it's like, I don't know, about 2 miles outside of the nearest town. And so there's really nowhere to park. So I'm driving around looking there. There's a U-Haul business right by there that was closed today, and I pulled into their parking lot, and I was thinking about parking there, and I was like, well, I don't really have permission to park here. I don't know if I can legally. I don't see any no parking signs, but it is somebody's private business. So I left, and then I saw there was this little park, which I assumed was like a little county park or a city park. And so I was like, oh, that's great. I can park there, and it's right near the entrance to this memorial. Everybody coming and going will have to drive right past me. There's no other way out. So I was like, this is perfect. I'll just park here and sit up on the side of the road. And so that's what I did. And about, 45 minutes, an hour into it, I see somebody coming towards me on a golf cart. And he must have been like one of the staff from the memorial site. He's like, hey, you can't be here, man. He was really rude with just his tone, his attitude, everything. And so I said, I'm familiar. I've been out enough. I've seen enough public street preachers. I've fellowshipped with them. We've discussed laws. I don't know all the laws. Every city's different. But I know enough. If you're on public property, a public sidewalk or a public street, you're well within your rights. We have the constitutional rights of freedom of speech, freedom of religion. A business owner can't tell you can't be on public property. Private property is completely different. I always make sure to avoid private property. I don't even, put 1 foot onto their grass. You make sure you're not blocking any pathways so that they can say, you're heeding traffic or you're interfering with public traffic. You don't want to do that. I'm always, my ministry, I'm just standing with a sign, so it's silent. I'm not harassing anybody. I'm not arguing with anybody. I'm not getting into anything with anybody. And 99% of the people I see are just driving by, so the worst I get from them is a middle finger or something, and there's no real argument. Sometimes people will approach you, but I try to remain gentle and peaceable, and no matter what their demeanor and disposition is. Sometimes when a guy like this, when they're confrontational, sometimes my tone can come across as also confrontational. Like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? And I try my hardest to avoid that, but sometimes it still comes across in my tone. But anyways, so this guy, he's, you can't be here. This is private property. I said, well, no, sir. This is a public road. I can stand here. And he saw, once he tried to argue with that a little bit, and then he saw that it wasn't getting anywhere. So he looked behind me to the parking lot of this what I thought was a city park. And he's like, is that your car there? And I was like, yeah, that's my car. And he's like, well, that's a private park. And I was like, well, it's a city park. And he's like, no, that's a private park. You can't park there. And I said, all right, that's fine. I'll move my car. And he kind of drove off in a fit, You could tell he was very agitated, still very confrontational. He drove off. So I immediately went to my car, moved my car. I went and parked. I wasn't sure if I was legally able to or not, but I parked on the side of the road. It's a gravel road, like I say, out in the middle of nowhere. I made sure I'm far enough away from the stop sign where I'm not breaking any laws as far as I know. I didn't see any no parking signs or anything like that. So I parked there, jumped out, walked back up to the road, posted up, had a good time. It's like I say, I was really, really nervous because you never know how you're going to be received. But a lot of the motorcycle people were giving me thumbs up, waving at me. It didn't look like anybody was really offended. One lady drove by and gave the finger. There's always some, I think it's okay to call them an idiot, right? The Bible calls them fools. There's always some immature it's nice in the little, I used to go out in the cities in Minneapolis and stuff, and man, you can get things are way, way different in the cities. People get very confrontational. Usually they're in a crowd and they're either high or drunk, and so they're very vulgar, in your face, will throw stuff on you. But in these small communities where I'm at now, most people, even if they're irritated by you, they'll just kind of give you a frumpy look. Most people are well-mannered enough to not cause any problems. And like I say, occasionally you get some immature person who flips a bird, or some, young, dumb kid who drives by and says something about Satan thinking he's cool, or thinking that he's going to shock us, like we didn't come from darkness in the first place. But anyways, nothing, no real big deals. Like I say, everybody was pretty nice and peaceable. And so I continued to do that, but the whole time this nervousness remains in me. And after that confrontation with the guy on the golf cart, when he left, I was like, all right, man, he's going to go call the cops. You can always tell. And I've had experience with police in the cities, and it's kind of 50-50 on what you're going to get. Sometimes a cop shows up and he's just an authoritarian brute, who just doesn't care that he swore an oath to defend the Constitution, doesn't care about constitutional rights, just cares about you obeying him. And so a lot of times you'll get angry, confrontational cops who will get in your face and tell you can't do something. And, if you try to point out to them that you're well within your constitutional rights, chances are you're going to jail. Now, of course, the charges will get dismissed 99% of the time, because once you get in front of a judge, he's going to be like, well, you didn't do anything wrong, unless you get a cop that makes stuff up, which is why it's wise to always have a camera, always film your interactions with the police. But anyways, so this apprehension remained in me, and at one point, I'm sitting there thinking, and I was like, Lord, can I just leave? I'm just going to go, just to avoid this confrontation. And I don't know, I just felt like the Lord prompted me again to stay. Like, like here I am at an event where people died fighting for the beliefs and freedoms they believed in. Am I not going to have the courage to stand for my beliefs? And, just, I don't know. So I with that internal dialogue with the Lord, I was like, all right, I'm going to stay. And I was counting the cost in my head. I was like, all right, I'm going to end up getting arrested. I'm going to end up going to jail. It's a holiday. I don't know when I'm going to get in front of the judge. Don't know what I'm going to do about work tomorrow. So I'm just preparing myself for this. I'm preparing myself to get arrested, preparing myself. And again, anytime, especially with a cop, I'm going to be uber respectful. I was a rebellious child. I learned that you can't win against a cop, and it's just foolish to talk aggressively or anything like that. So I always remain very calm and respectful. So, I'm preparing my heart for this, and sure enough, I see a cop drive by, and he goes up to the event, and I'm like, all right, he's probably going to talk to the guy, get the information, and he was up there for a good 10 minutes. I could have left. And that's actually when I was having that conversation with the Lord. Like, can I leave? Should I leave? Ultimately coming to the conclusion that no, it's better to stand here for your faith. And just, whatever happens. Trust the Lord. So about 10 minutes later, I see another cop coming from the other direction. When you see two cops, it's like, all right, it's good. They're coming. It's going down. So I pull out my phone and I pull up Facebook. I was going to go live right away because I've got a lot of brothers and sisters that are involved in ministry, and they could certainly offer advice and counsel. And if I did get arrested, there's people who know different resources for Christians to use and things like that. But my Facebook Live wouldn't go for some reason. It wouldn't activate. So instead, I just switched to my camera and recorded the video as the cop's getting out of the car. And he sees me recording. He's like, it's all right, I'm recording on my dashboard as well. And ended up being a really nice cop. He was like, hey, you're not doing anything wrong. Just want to make sure you're being safe. He's like, where you're set up right now on the side of the road here is fine. You should be perfectly safe here. He's like, just don't, harass or anything. I'm like, oh yeah, officer, nothing's going on. I'm just standing here silently with my sign. And he's like, yep, and just don't go on to private property. I'm like, absolutely. I'm completely aware of that, officer. As soon as that gentleman told me I was on a private park, I got my car and moved. And he's like, all right. And at the end, I truly appreciate cops who stand up for law, like the real law. They're not authoritarians. Like, there's a group called the Oath Keepers that, man, I weep when I think about these guys, because they're real heroes. They take their oath to the Constitution seriously. They realize that their job, they swore an oath to defend us, the people, from tyranny. And so they protect our rights against authoritarian violations of those rights. Whereas the other half of the cops are just, like I say, like SS officers, like just following orders. They believe in the system, and they believe the people to be the enemy, and they just follow orders. And so if the order comes down to arrest you, harass you, it don't matter what your rights are. They're going to follow their orders. And so I told that cop, I was like, hey, I shook his hand. I was like, I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate cops who take their oath to the Constitution seriously. And, he's like, yeah, absolutely. You're not doing anything wrong here. You're well within your rights. Just be safe. And he's just doing his due diligence. He gets a call from somebody he's got to follow through. So that's why he came and talked to me. But anyways, as soon as that was done, I stayed for another 10 minutes. Pretty much all the traffic had cleared out by that time anyways. And, I always internally am asking the Lord, like, when should I leave? Is it okay to leave now? How long do you want me to stay? That kind of thing. And just, it's not, I'm not a charismatic. I'm not telling you that the Lord gives me audible answers. You just get a prompting in the spirit where you feel at peace about it, like, okay, I feel comfortable leaving now. And, you just take that as a prompting of the Spirit. And so as soon as the cop was done, I felt that peace, like, okay, your job's done. You can leave. I don't know what it was all about. Why the Lord wanted me there to have that confrontation with the police, but it went well this time. Hopefully in the future. I've only had one other time in these small communities around here where I've had to deal with a cop, and it was at a county fair. And again, the cops were really, really nice about it. Before they even got there, some lady came up to me and told me I couldn't be there, and I explained to her that I was within my constitutional rights, that this was a public area, that I could be there. And it just so happened that the cops that she wanted to come and harass me were standing behind her listening. And so when she asked the cops to get me out of there, they're like, well, he already told you, he's well within his rights. This is public property. So the 2 times I've had encounters with police around here, it's been good. But like I say, there always is that chance that you're going to go to jail. And you just have to count that cost. Some cops just don't understand their duty. They don't understand their oath. And they don't understand our rights, that we have the right to religion. We have the right to free. That is the whole purpose of free speech and religion, is so that we can proclaim the gospel in the public arena to others. That's the reason those rights were instituted. And it's supposed to be police officers' jobs to protect those rights from tyranny. But again, it's been my experience that some cops just they're part of the problem. They're part of that authoritarian system. But this time it was good. If you're one prone to prayer, Please keep me in prayer when I do go out. It's like I say, it's always scary. It's always nerve-wracking. Not scary in the like. I've been to jail. Jail's no big deal. I'll go to jail. I went to jail for stupid heathenous things. What an honor it would be to go for the Lord. But it causes financial problems. You got to miss work. There's got to be explanations. There can be fines. It's just a hassle. And so there's always a little bit of that apprehension when you go out. Not so much when I'm just standing on the side of the road, but when you go to an event. And the worst encounters I've had with police have been when I've gone and protested in front of fake churches. I do that sometimes, and I've been feeling a prompting from the Lord to get back into that. So just I pray. My hope is that the Lord continues to give me favor. I certainly don't want to go to jail, and I would hope that police officers would be nice and respectful and realize that free speech and free religion is not a violation of law. So anyways, just wanted to share that testimony. I was listening to Alex Jones the other day. And anybody who knows me knows how much I respect Alex Jones. When it comes to geopolitics and having a proper understanding of what in the world is really going on with world leaders and the political scene, there's nobody more accurate than Alex Jones. He's spot on. He knows his stuff. He's been studying properly for 30 plus years, and he's the go-to source for all things geopolitical. But as much as he has that right, he is not a source for spiritual truth. He claims to be a Christian. Whether or not he is, I don't know. That's between him and God. I don't know the man personally, so I can't really judge the fruit that comes out of him. I can say I'm disappointed in his language sometimes and his anger, and he certainly does not have proper theology or biblical understanding. And so that led me to think about something that I've thought about a lot over the last several years here. And it's how having a proper worldview is so important. And I've fixated on this so much because I feel like it's so important in an age of deception where misinformation is everywhere. From the time you're born, you're told false things. And people just have such a wrong view of how things actually work that, of course, they're going to get a multitude of things wrong. Because if your foundation is wrong, then everything you build upon that foundation is going to be skewed. And I've often tried to figure out, what is the best way to teach somebody a proper worldview. I even started a video series on YouTube called Developing a Proper Worldview. And I've considered it my most important work. It's the totality of my 20 plus years of studying put into a video format where I try to take people step by step through developing a proper worldview, a proper way of understanding how this world works. And it's a complicated thing because it has to be done it's like building a house. It has to be done in the right order. You have to get the foundation right, and then you have to get the pillars right, and the and the the walls right, and then you have to get the siding, the insulation. I'm not a house builder. I don't know what all goes into it, but things have to be done in a proper order. And it's the same way with developing a proper worldview. There's so much misinformation out there. People have been led astray in so many various different areas that you almost have to undo everything by backtracking. And because every misconception, every lie that people are told, every false thing people believe is built upon another false thing that also has to be corrected, which is built upon another false thing, which is built upon another false thing. Like I say, from the time children can speak, they're taught lies through television, through academia, through books, through pop culture, just through general information you're going to pick up throughout the world. They're taught false things. And so if you're going to try to correct somebody's understanding on something, you have to source it back to the root and start there. And you have to have that correct understanding at the root, and then you can properly build. Like, people, like, if you just jump in, like, just random information, like, let's say I was to try to convince you that 9/11 was an inside job. I can present overwhelming evidence to prove that, but a person's understanding and worldview is like, they won't be able to accept it because something else underlying it is incorrect. And so I've tried to source this back to the foundation, to the root, and then from there build a correct understanding. And like I say, it's complicated to do. I've done that video series for a long time. I really enjoy it. I have over 100 episodes. Each one's probably 2 to 3 hours long. On average, probably 2 hours. Maybe an hour and a half, some of them are. I don't remember. But it is a very lengthy series, and I'm probably only a third of the way done with it. I haven't done one in a couple months now. My computer broke. So I haven't been able to do some of the video series that I like to do, unless I can do it with my phone like I do with the podcast. But that particular video series, I don't know how to do. I would be able to do it with just a phone. I have to have the computer. Excuse me. And I haven't been able to afford to get a new computer, so I just kind of put it on delay. But again, just thinking about this Alex Jones thing, because it's like, even though he's got so much right, he has this one piece wrong. He's just wrong on spiritual things. He's wrong on biblical things. And because of that, it skews his view on a multitude of other things. So even though he's got like 98%, you shouldn't go to Alex Jones for spiritual truth. You shouldn't go, he claims to be a Christian. He talks about spiritual things a lot. But that shouldn't be your source. If you want to know about geopolitics, if you want to know about the New World Order, most definitely he's a go-to source. But then the worldview is a little bit askew because one of those foundational pieces is wrong. And so listen to that. I once again just thinking it through, like, how would you explain to somebody, how would you teach somebody in a step-by-step fashion how to have a proper worldview? And again, the video series I do, I think so far, I think it's accurate. I try to do it in the way that I learned things, and but it, again, because it's so much, things might be a little bit out of order. But as I was thinking it through, it's like, okay, if I were to teach somebody right now, if somebody were to allow me to develop a course of thought, a teaching course on here's each step, what would it be? And the very first step, the foundation people have to have, is that there is a God that there's a creator, there's a maker, there's somebody in charge who has made all things. That has to be your foundation. And the devil attacks there with like the theory of evolution and gets people. So like you have to counteract that poison. And that's what I do in my video series. But that foundation has to be laid. You have to get people to recognize there is a creator God. You can't live in denial of that. You can't suppress that truth. You have to, everybody intuitively knows it. Everybody's conscience bears witness. You look at the sky. Earlier today I was looking at the beautiful blue sky with the white puffy clouds and the trees in the background. And just looking at it, like how much of it looks like a beautiful painting, because there's design, there's creativity, there's beauty, and that's evidence of a creator. And when people look around, the evidence of a creator is everywhere. From the birds chirping, from the flowers, from the wind to the sunlight. Everything cries that there's a creator. So you have to have that as your step one. You have to recognize that there's a creator, that this world has a purpose, that there's intentionality in creation. Step two would then be recognizing who that creator is and how he's revealed himself in the Holy Bible, that is God, that the Bible testifies of itself, that it is true, that it is a miraculous book with fulfilled prophecies written hundreds and even thousands of years before that come to pass exactly. And it's a true book. Like the words of the Bible ring true in your heart. It testifies to your conscience that it is the truth, that the Bible is the revelation of this creator God. The Bible is the way we know who this creator is. That has to be your second brick in the foundation. Third, you must recognize that you have to have a relationship with him. And that's where the gospel comes in, and man's sin and fallenness, and of just a variety of different things there. But you have to understand that you must develop a relationship with him in order to understand the way things are working. God is spirit, and you must have spiritual understanding. So you have to have a connection with him in order for that spirit life in you to be revived. The spirit life that's dead in Adam, that you learn through the scriptures, that you learn that we are all spiritually stillborn. We're dead in trespasses and sins. We're condemned already from birth because of sin. And then we all go astray because of our own lusts and desires pulling us into various different pockets of sin. But we're all separated from God, and we need to be reconciled to him. And that only comes through Jesus Christ, through the man who lived the righteous life and bore our sins, who took upon himself the punishment for our rebellion, for our selfish, sinful lives. He took the sin on himself. He paid our sin debt to make reconciliation with God so that we could have our spiritual life revived in him through faith in him. And again, this is all learned through the scriptures. So that's your foundation, is you have to understand the creator God, that he is the God of the Bible, and that you need to have a relationship with him. That's your step 1, 2, and 3 for developing a proper worldview. You have to have those things correct. Then you move on to understanding that we live in a fallen world, that things are not the way they're supposed to be, that although God is loving and kind and perfect and benevolent, the world is twisted and dark and evil. And the reason is because there's an enemy called the devil who wants to be God. He wants the worship. He wants to ascend to godhood. He wants people to look to him and worship him and not the real God. And his nature is that of deception and death and chaos. And this devil holds sway over the lost world because we are all spiritually stillborn, because we're born separated from God. We are therefore born
slaves of this satanic kingdom, slaves of darkness, slaves of our own lusts and temptations. We're pulled into darkness. This dark entity called the devil holds sway over the entire world, and he deceives and he lies, and his goal is to be God. He wants to be God. And so that's your fourth step in developing a proper worldview. The fifth is that understanding that everybody that has not been reconciled to God is in the slave kingdom of the devil and is his puppet, is available to be used and maneuvered and influenced by Satan to accomplish his goals. And again, his goal is to be like God. He wants all power. He wants all knowledge. He wants to be all seeing. He wants complete and total control, sovereign control over the world, and to be worshipped by its inhabitants. And so he holds sway over men's hearts and moves them in that direction, especially authority figures, especially people in power. That this world belongs to the devil, and he gives it to whom he pleases. He gives pockets of power to people that are specially influenced by him, people that are willfully sold out to him, willfully subject to his guidance and his influence, who follow his orders. These people are in charge of the world system, and they're maneuvering the world towards that devilish sovereignty, that devil all powerful, all knowing kingdom where he is in complete control. So that's the next step you have to have in this worldview, is understanding that, and understanding that those in power are placed there by the devil for these devilish purposes. The next thing you have to understand is that because the devil wants to be all powerful, because the devil wants complete control, he has and he's the opposite of God. He's not loving and kind and generous. He's evil and dark and a liar and a deceiver and a killer and a murderer and a destroyer. His world kingdom is developed that way through lies and deception and death and chaos. And throughout all of history, he's moved upon men to conquer the world using those means, using deception and death and evil. The next thing you would need to understand would be that in our current world, the current world leaders use technology and power to maneuver the world towards that devilish goal. They're in power of all the different sectors of influence, all the different sectors of the world, financial, academic, entertainment, resources, governments, military, all of that is under this devilish control and is aimed at this all-powerful, all-seeing one world system where the devil is the sovereign over the world. And so our current system is operated that way, and the people in power have that end goal in mind. And again, they're sold out to that system. They are willfully subject to Satan. We in the conspiracy circles, we call it the New World Order. So once you have that's foundation one, all those steps there. Then I think the next thing people need to understand, the next thing people have to come to an understanding of, and have their thinking rewired, is that America is not some benevolent, good guy system. Like we're taught from youth that America's the good guys, that we're spreading democracy, and people don't even realize that democracy is a bad thing. That America was not originally intended to be a democracy. It was intended to be a constitutional republic, which is very different from a democracy. But people don't understand that, and they're taught to just to support the American system because we're the good guys. And so it's important for people to understand that that's not what America is. That America is the muscle and the might and the power behind this devilish one world system. That it's the anchor, it's the driving force. And if you go back and you study the foundations of America and how high level occultists, the authorities, the people in power, were trying to bring about this occult idea of the new Atlantis, a utopia. It's a Luciferian system. That's the devilish sovereign one world system. That was the goal to create that using America, and that's been the hidden goal behind the scenes. Although America has been filled with a lot of Christians, and we have had a Christian ethic and Christian morality, behind the scenes, though, the people in power have been lusting to use America to establish this devilish system. And so America is not a good guy. It's America. The American ideology of a constitutional republic is a very good idea. It's a wholesome and prosperous thought. It's a, in its intent, that thought is a good thing, but that's not what's really going on. What's really going on is these greedy Luciferian leaders using America to manipulate the world into this one world satanic system. And so people have to come to the understanding that blind patriotism, where we just say, yay America, because America's the good guy, is foolish. You have to, and the thing that woke me up to that was 9/11. Like, prior to that, I was all gung-ho thinking George W. Bush was a good Christian man, and America was the good guys. And then 9/11 made me realize, like, whoa, there's powers behind the scene that are not good, that have nefarious goals. And then that led to me understanding, like, despite politicians' rhetoric, we can't just look at what a person says. Just because a person says they're a Christian, that doesn't make them one. You have to look at their life. And I learned that George W. Bush was involved in Skull and Bones and Bohemian Club, and just, was responsible for these fake, or not fake, but deceitful wars in the Middle East, lied about the weapons of mass destruction to get us into Iraq. And then, you end up with like over 1 million innocent deaths in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Sudan, just killing and slaughtering millions of people for nefarious purposes. And it's not because, and people who are wrapped up in this good guy America patriotism ideology just get behind the system and say, yay, yay America, we're going against Iraq, without stopping to think and be like, whoa, hold on now. What did Iraq do? I apologize about that. My recording cut out without me realizing it. So I don't know how much I said after that, but I was talking about just, the next thing people need to be aware of is how the American system is the driving force behind the New World Order, that we're not the good guys. And so then that should lead you into thinking, well, hold on then, because we're told that from birth, through media, through academia, through entertainment, through government. So the next thing you need to understand is that these systems lie. Again, they're under the sway of the devil, whose nature is to lie and deceive. And the media it's really important. I think the next thing you should learn is that the media is not a news organization. It is a propaganda system to get people to support this New World Order system. The media is just another branch of government that's used to manipulate and brainwash and condition thought processes to support the New World Order system. And academia is the same. Academia, you're taught a certain philosophy, you're taught certain things. Media or entertainment, it's the same thing. It's a lying system. All right, so then from there, so once a person has a biblical foundation, an understanding that this is God's world, that things belong to Him, that you have to have a spiritual connection with Him, and then understanding that America is not the good guy, America's just another, not just another, it is the driving force behind the New World Order system, and that our information centers in society are really just propaganda arms for this American New World Order system. Once you have that understanding, then you have to understand that, see, and this is where I get confused. I'm not really sure where to go next. Okay, I suppose it would be like, what's their end goal? And we know the devil's plan is to be the sovereign. He wants to be the sovereign ruler. He wants the worship. He wants to be the all-seeing, the all-knowing, the all-powerful. So that's the end goal. The end goal is a one world system under Luciferian control. The end goal is to have the entire world united in worship of Satan. And again, it doesn't have to be Satan by name. Satan doesn't care what you call him. Whenever God is not receiving worship, by default Satan receives the worship. So whether it's Buddha, Muhammad, Lucifer, Moloch, Gatau, the great architect of the universe, however you want to address it, this one world system. That's why it'll be an ecumenical one world system. So that's the end goal, and understanding that all the movements of corporations, all the movements of governments, all the movements of the media are aimed towards that goal of bringing the world into a Luciferian one world system. And again, because the devil's a liar, deceiver, and evil and dark, the antithesis of everything God is, that system is immoral, it's wicked, it's evil, it's perverse. And so everything is aimed towards demoralizing society, perverting society, and bringing it all under one umbrella, one control system. So technology is aimed at that, finances are aimed at that, corporations are aimed at that, governments are aimed at that, all government movements are aimed at that. That's your next step in understanding. What else would be important to know from there? Just on the side, it would be important to understand the occultism behind everything, learning, how the devil influences and controls these world leaders, how they're all involved in various cults, like Bohemian Club, like Skull and Bones, like Freemasonry, like Illuminism. They're all high level, and when I say all, I'm using that in general. There are holdouts, there are people. There's not many though, because again, the system is a devilish system. He puts into play who he wants. Like you don't get to advance up the ranks without selling out. With very few exceptions. Some people do get into power by God's grace that are good and decent people. Very, very few and far between though. So learning the occultism behind it, learning to study authority figures involved in these various occults, that would be the next step, I think. And then learning like to learning how this totalitarian system will work, learning how it's easier to control fewer people, so they want population control, and so things like poisonous foods, like GMOs and things like that, pesticides, all the artificial crap we eat, poisoning the water, fluoride in the water, poisoning the air with chemtrails, lies like global warming aimed at depopulation. All of that is aimed at reducing the human population so that it's easier to control, so that it's easier to have under this one world system. All technology is aimed at this. All these different, then you can understand why chemtrails. Like, to a normal person, you tell them about chemtrails, it probably seems insane. But once you have these foundations laid, then it makes sense. Then it goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's part of this New World Order, depopulation, total control system. And, yeah. Let's see, where else would you want to go with that? I suppose that's it. Once you have those foundations laid, then everything that occurs, you can look at it through the proper lens. Then when something in the news happens, you can look at it and understand it properly. You can understand that if something is being told to you through Fox or through CNN or MSNBC, you'll know, okay, this is propaganda. I know their end goal is this New World Order, totalitarian, demoralized society. So how does this fit into that scheme? You can understand things correctly. But you'll have the hope, because you'll have a biblical foundation of knowing that God is in control of all things. That although it appears that things are digressing and getting worse and worse, it's bringing about an ultimate goal. That God has a holy, wonderful purpose behind it. And that we can trust in Him. So again, it's important to have that biblical, and that's where this all started with the Alex Jones things, because Alex is as great. Like, to me, he's the greatest American of all time. I think he's a modern day Paul Revere, but in a more important time. So he's more important than Paul Revere, and but because that biblical foundation is incorrect, his end goal is incorrect. He has a thought that this New World Order system can be defeated, and that the good guys can win, and we don't win until the King returns, and then we win. But it's this system is going to happen. We don't know when, because we don't know God's timeline. So we expose things and hope that by doing so, God is giving us more time, that things will be delayed, and that's a goal we can have, a goal that we can hope for. But again, knowing that all things are under God's control and things are going to happen in His timing regardless. But, yeah, I didn't really know where I was going to go with this whole conversation here. Like I said, there's a lot to it. I guess I'll end it by just recommending that you'd watch my Developing a Proper Worldview series on Rumble or YouTube. Again, to me, it's the most important thing I'll do in my life. That's foolish to say, because who knows? Eternal things, if people get saved, we preach the gospel. That's infinitely more important. But this is it's my passion. It's taking all the things I've learned spiritually, all the things I've learned geopolitically, and combining them into a teaching mechanism to try to pass that knowledge along. And so it's I love doing it. It's very important to me. I wish I could get everybody to watch it. But yeah, again, I don't know where I was really going with this whole conversation here. Just please go watch the Developing a Proper Worldview series. Or, I have a list of documentaries. I have a Facebook group, Worldview documentaries. And you can go in there and just learn yourself. Just go and watch these 100+ documentaries that I've put on there. Yeah, I guess I'll just end the conversation here. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. As always, I truly appreciate you listening. I love you, and Lord willing, we'll talk to you next time.